Hello, everybody, and welcome to Web and Beyond Live for June 15th, 2020. I'm Ray Sidney Smith, president of W3 Consulting and managing director of W3C Web Services, where we provide affordable WordPress hosting, domain name registration services, and the like. And so welcome to Web and Beyond Live. It's my weekly conversation with small business about marketing and managing on the web and beyond. And so today what we're going to do is I'm going to talk about a smattering of articles that I've picked up across my reading in the past week. And I think it'll be useful to everybody to kind of get an idea about what's going on in both this kind of weird technology space as we are hearing all about automation and AI, and then talking about a couple of interesting thoughts I've had about user-generated content and about brand positioning. And so we're going to cover those three topics today. And so first and foremost, I don't know if you've all seen in the news, but I've been paying a lot of attention to Microsoft's recent replacement of some of their journalists on staff with the Microsoft News team with AI. And I know it's gotten a lot of a lot of publicity out there. But in essence, if you didn't hear about the story, in essence, I'm just reading here from a little snippet from Forbes here, where they say this past week, quote, "This past week, it was announced that Microsoft has let go several journalists and instead will be implementing AI, artificial intelligence, that has the ability to perform those same jobs." Nearly 30 journalists were given a month's notice following Microsoft's decision to no longer employ people who would research, edit, and choose the various news articles for one of their pages. While the individuals who worked on the site run by Microsoft did not write the stories they were curating, they did edit and pick stories from other news outlets and occasionally edit headlines and material when needed. End quote. So this was sourced, actually, Forbes sourced it from Novanight, and I'll put links to all of this in the video description. But I wanted to talk a little bit about artificial intelligence and what it really means in terms of automation, and really what is happening here is machine learning in probably at the background. So to kind of unpack all of this, there's automation that a small business can take advantage of. And within that automation space is artificial intelligence. Machine learning is one type of artificial intelligence. And probably the, let's call it the dumbest version of artificial intelligence, in the sense that machine learning is, think of it as you put inputs in and you tell it what the output should be. And then artificial intelligence, the machine learning, basically learns what the algorithm should be to get the outputs. So you put in good data in, good data on the outside so that it has good examples. And then machine learning does the middle part, which is understanding the algorithm so that at some point you stop giving it the outputs and you just keep giving it inputs, and then it is able to do the job that you're asking it for. So there is that's why they call it machine learning, because there is a learning process that's necessary for it to be able to do that level of ongoing work after some time. So what Microsoft is doing is, because they have been in this space for as long as they have been, they have now been able to, in essence, understand enough of what users are looking at and clicking on that they're able to take the inputs, which are all the various news feeds that are coming into their world, and then displaying those on the other side, which is curating that news for people who are coming into their browser. You know, they come to that landing page for the Microsoft News page, and now they're capable of seeing that news without a human intervention. This has just really huge implications for the really our workforce, the global workforce, but the small business workforce as well. If your business is in the business of, say, curating content, this is a potential external, what we call a threat in the SWOT analysis. This is a huge threat to those businesses. On the flip side of that, this is a huge opportunity for small businesses who would otherwise have to pay for this kind of curation to be done. Now, let's get from the very beginning here, which is to say that machine learning today is still nascent, and to be able to run this type of technology is getting more and more accessible. Tools like Monkey Learn and other types of tools are out there that are starting to give these tools to anyone who is willing to use them. Google Cloud, as well as Microsoft Azure, both have these technologies built into their cloud platforms. And so you can go into Google Cloud Console and check out the various machine learning algorithms that they have running, but you still have to be pretty techie to be able to make that happen. happen. So you do have to pay attention to what you're doing when you're trying to create machine learning technologies and implementing them. But we're seeing this in video technologies now, where people are capable of uploading video. It can analyze the video and then decide which parts are good, which parts are bad. I just actually saw a technology that does something like that. Who knows if it's in beta, so we'll see if it actually ever becomes a real product. But the idea here is that we're going to be able to create some real efficiencies in small business, and that is going to reduce our need to hire people to fill those roles, and that also actually impacts our local economies. So this is a much broader conversation we all have to be having about how efficient our small businesses need to be in order to be the businesses we want them to be, while also still positively impacting our local communities. Because if our local communities die because we're not hiring anyone, us small business owners are not hiring anyone locally, that means that there's nobody to buy from. It's one of the reasons why Ford, Henry Ford, when he, created the 8-hour workday and doubled people's salaries, was because he needed people to buy his cars. He needed people to have both expendable income and discretionary time. So he established that level of power because he knew if he kept everyone working all the time and didn't pay them enough, then he was going to, in essence, choke his community, and over time, that was going to ultimately hurt the economy more than it was going to help. So we all have to have that kind of conversation. I just wanted to spark your attention about it because I think it's really important for us to all have. As we make our way through, I'm going to be highlighting some artificial intelligence, some machine learning, and other types of automation technologies over the next couple of weeks. And I just wanted to kind of hint at that to let you all know that it's on the pike, it's here, and it's not going away. So we all need to have kind of that conversation about really what is happening in the AI space and how we as small business owners should be taking advantage of it, because it can do some really amazing things. But there are, of course, with any technology, it's a double-edged sword, right? There's going to be good consequences and bad consequences from all of it. Okay. Next up is on social media today, they put out an infographic. This was put together by M2 Technology Group, and it's all about user-generated content. And they're talking about how it really fits into the overarching marketing strategy. And I will put a link to this in the video description as well for you to look at. But they, in essence, define user-generated content. I'm gonna just go through and walk you through the infographic, and I'm not gonna show it on screen because it's really not necessary. But I'm gonna read their definition, and I'm gonna give kind of my commentary alongside it, because I think it's important for us all to keep in mind. So they just start off with defining user-generated content, or UGC, as online content related to a brand that has been voluntarily provided by its customers. It could take the form of images, videos, comments, blogs. I'm guessing they mean blog posts, other social media posts, and more. Popular brands often use UGC as part of their online marketing efforts in order to engage fans and build credibility. And so my thoughts now on this are UGC is much broader than and potentially what they're saying here. When I think of UGC, I think about it as originally mostly comments on your content. And it has since birthed into all of the various opportunities for what we would consider influencers today, people who are maybe part of your community or outside of your community, who are capable of influencing others based on the fact that they have an audience and they have an interest and a liking for your brand. That could be your products and services or the brand as a whole. What we need to be mindful of when it comes to UGC is that when we do UGC, when we have any level of user-generated content, that does to some extent give up a little bit of control. And we need to be mindful of that control that's lost when we use UGC. There are a whole host of benefits to that, of course, but we do need to be mindful of that. Once we hand off the reins to producing content about our brand that we are not ourselves explicitly creating, that does create a level of vulnerability. So we have to be careful about that. But the benefits far outweigh the disadvantages here. So just like reviews on Google, that's a type of user-generated content. Comments on your blog posts or comments on your videos, those are all also UGC. And we have to be thinking beyond that, though, in the sense that, from my perspective, the notion of community, when I wrote Solomo Success, my first book back in 2014, and I published it, the whole notion behind it was that we needed to build these communities. Some people call them tribes, some people call them, internal social networks, whatever you want to call them, brand advocates. This is the community that is there to support you. And when we create this smaller community of people who are dedicated to knowing, liking, and trusting us and engaging with one another so that the bonds are stronger than they would be otherwise. Our goal is to be able to really, on an ongoing basis, be running a user-generated content campaign one after the other. So it no longer becomes really an issue about you producing content when it comes to your brand, but it's really fostering the creation of ongoing UGC. And this is where I think this infographic kind of touches a little bit on it, but really doesn't focus on that component. And I really think that we lose something here. It talks about why your brand needs to take advantage of UGC. It gives some statistics. Those are all fine. And then it talks about the value of UGC. It says establish a brand tribe. But in reality, UGC doesn't establish the brand tribe. You create the tribe by identifying key people who are going to be brand advocates or customer advocates, and then you give them responsibility. You give them authority and responsibility to be able to establish the community. You're going to set guidelines, and you're going to be able to do that. Now, how do you do that generally? It could be as easy as inviting people to comment on your blog, and then those people are the ones who you give more attention to and more thought to engaging with. That could be a blog, a podcast, YouTube channel, what have you. It could be creating an independent community like a Facebook group or LinkedIn group, where you're now bringing people outside of an external social network and bringing them to an internal social network, and then engaging with them in this space that's more quote unquote private, or intimate. You are really trying to create a closed off space where people feel safe, right? This is about psychological safety. And a lot of people don't really think about the psychology of marketing a lot. I spend a lot of time thinking about the psychology of marketing. And what we really are trying to do is to create a sense of safety, creating a safe space for your customers to be able to air their grievances, just get excited about your product, give you research, data points. We want to really be mindful of the fact that UGC is this moldable, really malleable space where we can engage with our basically the best and brightest of our community. So some of the other value pieces here, of course, they talk about business intelligence and increasing sales. And, of course, it requires less money, time, and resources than original content. I disagree with that. I think it probably is just about the same amount of time, energy, and money. You're gonna have to give resources to those people. If you don't feed and nurture those folks who are in your community, the community is going to die. And so you really need to be become a community leader. They talk about some of the challenges, people posting inappropriate content, and of course copyright issues. I think both of those are really easily managed if you are in a more private community or private group where you elevate community members to be community moderators, right? So remember that the core function for a community is contribution. And so if the community leader is contributing and the community members are not contributing, then you have an imbalance. You need to be able to create balance among community contributors and leadership. One way that you can do that is by virtue of appointing some people as moderators. And so in the UGC world, what we really want to do is, as a small business owner, reduce our overhead in terms of how much content we're creating out the gate, right? So at some point, you're generating lots and lots of content, but at some point you need to reduce that amount so that you're not the only one creating it, and you have a balance of who's creating content and who's not. Once you have that UGC in balance, then you need to create contributors, people who are putting their own content up there, but also people who are moderating other content. So now we can say, okay, I'm going to elevate 2 or 3 people who have been longtime members who I trust, and say, when you see something that may be inappropriate, or you see somebody completely lost, when someone new comes to the community, I would love to see you engage with them, welcome them to the community, answer any questions, and so on and so forth. And they may get a benefit for doing that, but they also may just get the recognition of getting the little gold star on their profile that says, hey, this is one of our community members who's a moderator, and they're going to be able to help you. They're our community ambassador, whatever you want to call them. But they're basically you're giving them more responsibility. They're getting a little bit of recognition and potentially other incentives for doing that. But the point is that you can really reduce some of these, copyright issues or people posting inappropriate content with good guidelines up front, some rules and regulations before they join the group, as well as having some moderators built in. And that, again, establishes that level of contribution. And then each member needs to be told what it is that they're supposed to be doing when they join the group. There's no free rides in a community. If you think about a family has a set of roles, people who fit into those roles within the community, and that family needs to, all the members of the family need to give those things in order for that family to run well. And that could just be from love and affection to paying the bills, to washing the dishes, you name it. And a family establishes those roles. The same thing happens in your business. Same thing has to happen in your content communities. Those are going to be that's going to be how you generate leads. That's going to be how you transition people from leads to interested buyers, to potentially buyers and post-sale customers who you want to come back for repeat business and for referrals. So you need to really think about this from kind of a more thoughtful perspective when it comes to UGC and how communities are building themselves. Okay, they then talk about kind of how to run a successful UGC campaign in 10 easy steps. And so I'm going to run through these because I think it's useful to get what they're talking about, and then I'll close out with my thoughts on that as well. And then I just want to hop over to my last thoughts on the branding questions that were noted in this entrepreneur article. Okay, so they talk about how to run a successful UGC campaign in 10 easy steps. Set a goal, get the ball rolling by making it a competition or engaging the help of an influencer. I'm sorry, that was number 3. Number 2 is brainstorm a clear concept and hashtag. So step 1, set a goal. Step 2, brainstorm a clear concept and hashtag. Step 3, get the ball rolling by making it a competition or by engaging the help of an influencer. Step 4, clearly communicate across channels how customers can take part. Step 5, get social listening software to help you quickly find UGC. 6, always ask permission before reposting content. 7, engage with the UGC by liking and commenting. Step 8, post content on your website, homepage, and relevant product pages. 9, use UGC in ad campaigns. And 10, refer to your analytics, gather your learnings, and start planning your next campaign. Now, again, if this was a sole one-time campaign and you were just running one campaign after the other, then this would make a lot of sense. In essence, I think that a lot of these steps are probably just fluff. The ongoing point of any UGC campaign when it comes to community and building a tribe is that, again, you're producing content to be able to gain leads for your business. You need to have and establish psychological safety so that people want to buy from you. They want to be able to feel safe so that they can take the risk and give you money for a product or service. That establishes that level of trust and the rapport necessary for that to happen. Communities are a really great place for that to happen. Not every business is designed around that, right? You can run an ad and someone will buy a commodity product from you the first time they see your ad and you've made a sale. You don't need to do community if you're in that type of business. But for most of us, we do need to establish some level of a relationship with that person before they're going to be willing to buy from us. And this is where community is important. And UGC, I think, fits squarely within the community in my perspective. If we try to do UGC outside of community and we try to use UGC as the building block for the community, then that becomes problematic. I think what we need to do is to think about what content are we doing to seed the community. That could be ads, right? Join our Facebook group and learn and grow together with each other around X. or publishing content so people become aware of your brand. And by becoming aware of the brand, they then learn thereafter that there is this community of people who are engaging, and that's going to get them excited in being able to do that. So out the gate, the goal of of any UGC campaign is actually internal within the community, to be able to get the community to interact with one another. So this whole notion of setting a goal and brainstorming a clear concept means that you're missing the boat on what UGC should be doing. Again, this is my perspective, so I could be wrong here, but I don't feel like I am, from watching many small business owners start communities and seeing how those communities become vibrant parts of their business, and they drive traffic to sales, and they drive members to become repeat business owners, repeat business, as well as to become referral business. So the goal here is always within the UGC campaign to strengthen the community members' bonds, which means driving them to live event type of live events where they're going to be able to interact, being able to create content that they're all going to be able to engage with, which means one member might create content. I recently had this in my own community. I run a small personal productivity community, and I asked one of my members, he tried out a new piece of software, and I said to him, hey, would you mind writing about your experience with this new piece of software? So he'll be able to post that content, and the campaign is all about getting people to put eyes on him. I don't want eyes on me. I want eyes on his content so that people can engage about that thing. And that's the real goal here, is what are the things that people are going to be interested in interacting on? It's kind of like a cocktail party. I always put the food on one end of a cocktail party, and then I put the drinks on the other end of the cocktail party. Why do I do that? Because then people have to cross each other in order to get to the food and snacks, right? So there's going to be intermingling in the center of the space by virtue of them having to cross each other in order to get to the food and drinks on either end. So we want to really create that kind of environment in our communities. That's the whole point of all of this. So we really need to think, just think more, think bigger than just a UGC campaign to create leads. Okay, that's really the goal here. Of course, I think it's really important to be asking permission for reposting other people's content. But again, if you are engaging folks in generating content in the first place within your community's walls, then you don't really have to worry about that, because they're of their own volition posting it inside of your community. So this is, again, where you not only establish rapport, but you're elevating people by giving them authority and responsibility for their words and for their actions. And more importantly, I think, is really getting them to bond with one another in a way that establishes a level of responsibility where they would not even think to do something wrong, because they know better by the social structure that's been created around you. I've tried to establish within my own communities that there are certain boundaries that we're just not going to cross, and everybody's aware of that. And so people don't really even think about doing it. And if someone were to, it would be very quickly and easily remedied. So not really too much of a problem. One of the things that it talks about is social listening software. I think this is one of those cases where you should have some level of either Google Alerts or some other type of tool that does, on an ongoing basis, look for things posted about your business, your brand name, your key employees' names, and so on and so forth. That's just an out the gate good idea. It's just good to have that outbound search happening and bringing you to surface anytime your name is mentioned, key employees are mentioned, your brand or products are mentioned, just generally. I think that's good. Go to Google Alerts, you can set it up, and there are other tools that allow you to do that on Twitter and Facebook and otherwise. So you're seeing those kinds of items surface. But generally, regarding UGC, if you are doing the right pieces, then you're actually having people post that content within your own environment. And as long as you're monitoring your own environment, you're going to be better off. So just keep that in mind. And yeah, so I think again, this whole notion of doing an external UGC campaign really doesn't fit with my overall thoughts on marketing strategy. You really need to think about this being UGC within a community, and then you solve a lot of the problems that are being created by UGC by virtually only using those types of campaigns inside of a community. Use other lead generation mechanisms for bringing people to the community. Build the size of the community, and you'll be better off from there. Okay. I wanted to close out just very quickly with some notes about an article on Entrepreneur. The article was entitled 4 Questions to Ask Yourself to Make Sure Your Brand is Resonating. And I just recommend that you go ahead and check out this article. It's by Jennifer Spencer. She's the CEO of Emergent Media. I don't know her, but she's a contributor. Guest writer, it says, and so she's published this article. She has 4 questions, and I think this is really an important time as we are all dealing with the economic recovery and potentially, future lockdowns and so on and so forth with regard to the COVID-19 pandemic. We really need to consider the strength of our brands and what we're going to be doing going forward. Again, brand plus community. It's ultimately how your small business is going to be resilient. But the questions that she asks are: what does our brand stand for? Number 2, based on the product selection and website, and this could be product or service, but product selection and website, what would people think our brand stands for? Because so often people come to your website and it's not a retail experience. It's a brochure that kind of covers what it is we do, but sometimes it doesn't actually cover what we do in the way in which it should. So based on the product selection and website, what would people think our brand stands for? 3, does our brand serve a need? Okay, so talk about needs and wants, felt needs and wants. Does our brand serve a need? And number 4, could a shift in brand serve this product in a better way? Could a shift in brand serve this product in a better way? And we need to do some level of constructive criticism when it comes to our brands and decide whether or not there needs to be a shift. And that may be shift in brand, but also remember that it could be shift in product or service. I know that that is the case for me right now. As we make our way through this economic change, I've decided that the product needed to change. I'm going to be doing more and more in a virtual space as opposed to being in physical spaces, teaching seminars and workshops, which means in a way, the brand also needs to shift along with the product and services we're providing in terms of foundation and infrastructure. So these are a set of big questions for me personally and professionally. And I just think that you should consider them for your own business going forward. Is really, what does your brand stand for? How does looking at your external collateral really tell you what your brand stands for, and does it serve a need? And based on that, could shifting the brand serve your product in a better way? I think those are really 4 great questions to be asking right now in the context of everything that's going on. And so Robin's noting that question, what does our brand stand for, is such a critical question in today's world. And she's seeing many corporate statements stating this very clearly, and that is absolutely true, Robin. And so I think that this is just a good time for small business to just get better at being able to represent our values. And by values, I don't mean moral and ethical values alone. These are just standards. We have standards regarding certain types of things, and we need to make those kinds of standards known to the public so that they can go ahead and just recognize where we are, where we stand with things. My standards regarding safety measures are that I'm not going to go out to public events and be a transmission vector for the novel coronavirus. So I'm not going to go out there and do in-person events, which means that I need to tell clients that I'm not coming to do a seminar in person for the foreseeable future. I'm not going to become the reason why 40 or 50% of your audience gets sick and then some percentage of them die. I'm just not going to be that person. So we need to be clear with that value, that we're not doing it. And that's something that we're now having to communicate in our brand and with our brand. And that's just one of those things that, now needs to be replicated in terms of our product and services. So just wanted to point that out to everybody. And hopefully the conversation on UGC and community helped you all kind of to understand a little bit more about how I think about when I'm working on marketing strategy planning with small business owners, really how they should be fitting UGC into the puzzle. And so I hope you've enjoyed our time together. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of the week. Again, I'm Ray Sidney Smith with W3 Consulting and W3C Web Services for this Web and Beyond Live. And here's to your marketing marketing and managing on the web and beyond. And take care. Bye, everybody.